engaging panel of guests. And I invite you, as always, to have a seat, perhaps a cocktail, and join the conversation at 888-550-9105. My jewels tonight are indeed from James Baldwin, because it goes without saying that he would be raging this week. Just like that. No, you didn't have to go all the way out. Rodney, no, you can go back up a little bit. There you go. Rodney Weatherspoon, or our Spoon, who has quite a story, which I will share with you a little later. But as I was saying, my jewels tonight come from James Baldwin, because it goes without saying that he would be all the rage tonight. If I can't believe a man at his word, then we have nothing. And then what do? Better yet, what have I got to lose? Is that not for me? Knowing that this man has not been telling me the truth, what have he, and certainly, what have we? I wonder what the people who are out there defending 45, if they let their children speak this way, and when the principal calls and says, your child is speaking out of turn in school, do they say, oh, that's just locker room talk? In the Oval Office. But Haitians are the problem, right? Returning people to earthquake-ravaged El Salvador, that's the problem. People needing more paper towel in Puerto Rico, that's the problem. Nigerians who can fix an iPhone in the dark with a flashlight and a bobby pin, that's the problem. No. They are not the problem. We know what the problem is. Now, how do we move this elephant out of the room? Tonight, a brother on a mission to help do the heavy lifting. Tallahassee Mayor Rattler,
yes,
most importantly, Mayor Andrew Gillum. Welcome to Hot Talk, sir.
Hey, Jill, thank you so much for having me here. And shout out to all the Rattlers out there and all your great listeners. Thanks for being up with us.
Listen, when I put out the promo that you were coming, that was all, the Rattler Nation was just all above. So now, as we honor the memory of one of the most prominent Americans this week, I'd like your thoughts on the past week in racism.
Yeah.
It almost seems like we're in some sort of alternate universe right now, and you really are. You are arming up to be a brave soldier to walk into that war.
Yeah. Well,
so tell me your thoughts.
Well, I mean, first of all, you were so eloquent in your early introduction here. The president, yet again, the individual who is uniquely unqualified for the office that he
every day.
Through his Twitter figures a way to insult, to demean, to dehumanize, to divide. He has never met an opportunity to deride a woman of color, people of color, and decided to take a higher road. He's incapable of that. And while I think it's important that we call this president out at every moment where he steps out of line, and we're going to be calling him out a lot, as we can tell, we also have to pay very, very close attention to what is happening behind the scenes while he's out.
Jeff Sessions was busy.
That's right.
While all of this was going on.
That's exactly right. Not just Jeff Sessions, apparatus and the ladders of this government. We have to be ever mindful. As I was taught in my early training as an organizer, we have to sleep in shifts, right? Yeah. There's no time out when it comes to this president, that he's a master of trickery, that he's constantly distracting. I don't think in a very brilliant way, but they're distractions nonetheless. Yeah. And when we are looking the other way, what's happening in the bureaucracy, through the organization that helps to move and keep this government going, whose consequences end up showing up in the everyday lived experience of people in this country. So we've got to sleep in shifts, hold him accountable for what he says, but also watch what he does.
Yeah, I think the judiciary is something that no one is.
That's right.
They have us watching all this foolishness and shiny objects over here.
That's right.
Meanwhile, there are 57 new judges in place.
That's right.
That will affect the rest of our lives.
That's exactly right.
And so, you know, you are in a unique position. And some would say that the Democratic Party is not in a position of power, and your heavy lift is made even heavier.
Of course.
So what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
When your wife woke up and said, where were you when you told her, okay, this is it, we're going to do it?
I have to be very honest. November of 2016 changed a lot for a lot of us. I thought we would have a different president in the White House. I thought that president would be assembling a new administration to usher in change across the whole landscape of issues that we care about, from education and education reform in a way that empowers families and children and creates an opportunity to learn for all kids. I thought we would have a president who would get to work on building an economy that makes way for folks who don't want to have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet, but could work 1, right? We didn't get that.
No.
And so being in Tallahassee, watching for the last 20 years, Republicans run roughshod over the state. They haven't met a testing instrument that they don't like. Never mind that these tests don't tell us what our kids know, but how well they take a test, right? And in the shadows of it all, we've got roughly 47% of the people in this state, working people, who say that they cannot make ends meet at the end of the month.
Yeah.
These aren't stories that don't fall on me solidly. Why? Because I've had the experience of what it means to try to not only live and try to survive in this state, but to try to thrive in this state. Coming from Richmond Heights, South Dade, where my mother was a school bus driver and my daddy was a construction worker. They were 2 of the hardest working people that I know. I'm one of 7 kids, number 5 of 7, the first to graduate from high school and the first to graduate from college, as you've already noted. Go Rattlers, right? And so I believe that you shouldn't have to have a famous last name or be able to stroke your own check to become governor of the state of Florida. I think you can be from Richmond Heights to born to working class parents. As long as you've got a heart to work and care with, you've got the ability to stiffen your spine and square your shoulders to the task, that you should be able to serve this state too. And so, yes, I'm experienced, 15 years of public policy making, but more than anything, I feel like I'm well equipped to address some of the challenges that confront our state at this time, at this particular moment. As you know, and I've become fond of saying, if you're not at the table, it means you're likely on the menu. Right? And so we got to get at the table. We got to eat. We got to prepare meals. We got to start setting an agenda that starts to serve our community in a much more aggressive way than what we've seen happen these last 20 years.
So now we know that, well, hope springs eternal, that we will return to a place where the corridors of government are a place of morality. But right now, they seem to have been overturned by money. So that means in order for you to effectively, or tell me if I'm wrong, that effectively run this race, you have to have fuel. And that fuel is money. And raising it is difficult.
Indeed.
So has that been a challenge for you in this? And what is it that you, I mean, other than money, you need from the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the truth is I'm the only non-millionaire on the Democratic or the Republican side running for governor. And the truth is if I could be one, I would be one.
Right.
It's not a hate against millionaires. I'm not. I've got to do this the old-fashioned way. I've got to make my way around the state, talking to everybody that I can and convincing them to sow just a little seed into this race. That's $20, $20.18. That's $50. It's $100. We've had nearly 14,000 contributions into our campaign. We've raised nearly $1.8 million so far in the race. I won't raise and I won't need as much as the folks who are able to stroke, 6-figure checks to fuel their own campaign, but we do need money money to make our way around this state and to talk to people. And so we've been trying to recruit as much resource as we can into this race. But next to resources, we need votes. Yeah. We need people who are prepared to activate on this race, who are prepared to Facebook and tweet about it, but also register to vote and turn out to vote. Let me just make this point here, Jill, for you and your listeners, and I'm sure you already know, but black voters are going to be about 30% of the vote in the Democratic primary. In a four-way race or in a three-way race, we're talking about the nominee of the Democratic Party emerging with 37, 40% of the vote, and black voters are nearly 30% of those voting. You can be declarative in who the nominee of the Democratic Party is. And so this is a grassroots movement. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm going to continue to do everything that I can to raise the resources that I need in order to run this race effectively. But to undergird those resources, we need people who are prepared to activate, to organize, to knock on doors, to put up a poster or a flyer in their barbershop or beauty salon, to talk to their ministers about it. I won't be able to buy votes, right? I got to organize votes. Right. And we can do that for the folks who are under sound of our voice, but also those who we have influence over.
Yeah, I think that one of the things, you know, having just finished a cycle, I started doing Hot Talk, it'll be 3 years this year. So 2016, you know, that was a big, and it was sort of I've always been sort of a spectator at politics because I was always in entertainment and lifestyle. But it's like as soon as I started paying attention, I was like, holy mother of God, what is going on? And it almost feels overwhelming to a point. So leading into 2016, you know, we did a lot to get out there and reach out to people. And there is a level of apathy that I find in our community, and a level of, I don't want to say depression, but very close to those people that were really activated to put Obama in place. And then he got in the White House, and many people feel like it was like, okay, thanks, we'll see you in 4 years. Love you, mean it. And then in 4 years they came back, hey, we need you to get out there. And because it's, you know, it was such a historical movement to be a part of, you know, we ginned it up every time. But this time, it seems really difficult to get people to even pay attention there. What would you say, you know, to people that, you know, other than the shenanigans of 45? That, you know, you really need to pay attention because, well, you know, I'm looking for that you know, the tassel swinging moment that's going to get people to understand, you know, how important it is, particularly the governor's race, you know, because the larger state, I mean, look at Alabama. Let's just start there. And I don't know if people understand you know, that the governor is more than management, you know.
That's right. No, the governor's office, listen, this governor was responsible for reversing the executive order that restored felons' rights, right? This governor was responsible for refusing to extend Medicaid under Obamacare to 1.5 million of the most medically needy people in this state, many of which are people of color. This governor is responsible for having refused receipt of over $1 billion from Barack Obama and the Obama administration when the president tried to send us that money to build high-speed rail to connect the population centers of this state and build a 21st century transportation network across the state of Florida. This governor is responsible for saying that he is not a scientist and therefore can't say whether or not global warming is real. Never mind, we live on a peninsula, and the state of Florida is, if you will, epicenter for the impacts of global climate change, right? And so when you think about the everyday lived experience in this state, and while I've got great respect for the presidency of the United States, in spite of the occupant of the office, the governorship probably has a more meaningful everyday impact on your life than probably many other offices out there, including those at the federal level. And so the tassel moment really is a lot of different moments, right? It's a lot of different issues. It's not just one. And I think what we have to demonstrate is the muscle to acknowledge that these problems didn't arrive in our communities overnight, and they won't be solved overnight. When we sent Barack Obama to Washington and said, good luck, brother, we did our part to get you there, we didn't go with him. The posse didn't show up.
Right.
And so we had a president there who every single day had to fight to be heard. He had to fight to get his justices and his judges through. He couldn't even get his last one in his last year, right? The Republicans did everything that they could to hold up his judicial nominations at the courts. And we know what significant role the courts play in our communities and in our lives. And so all I'm saying is that we really have to acknowledge, and we did it in Alabama, right? We sent a Democrat in 2017 to Washington from the great state of Alabama, the red state of Alabama, on the backs of African American women chiefly, followed by African American men, and 30% of the white vote. This is a state that is one of the most diverse states in all of America. Democrats in this state outnumber Republicans by several hundred thousand. More liberal/progressive-leaning independents are in this state than there are conservative-leaning independents. We have the numbers. All we have to do is show up. We lost the race for governor these last 2 times by fewer than 1%, fewer than 70,000 voters, and a state of 20 million people decided who the governor of the great state of Florida will be. And so we got to know that simply by showing up, exercising our right to vote is, yes, the beginning to getting change to happen, but it's just that, the beginning. We got to show up and be part of the posse that goes into Tallahassee, that goes into the governor's office and the governor's mansion to hold the governor and the cabinet and the bureaucracy accountable to delivering the change that all of us seek. But it takes time. It's not an overnight affair, and we got to level with people that change doesn't happen that way. You got to be a part of that process.
I was watching a piece on, I want to say CBS this morning, about gerrymandering, you know, and how it started. They started playing with those districts 3 years before, you know, we're talking 2014, 2013. Again, while we were paying attention to a shiny object over here, and you know, in some of these districts, they look like pretzels. They're just, you know, and we don't, a lot of those things, we just are not in the room. And I don't know if it's the history of exclusion, because I don't want to say that we're not concerned about what happens to our communities.
We are concerned.
And, you know, it is like, how do, and I hear a lot of times, I don't know where to get in where I fit in, right? I don't know, like, I don't know how to start you know, a group, or I don't know how to do those kind of things. So what would you offer? I mean, are there, you know, contacts to your campaign where people say, because there are a lot of people like, I want to do something, I just don't know where to start.
Well, I tell you, first of all, we would love to welcome you on our improbable yet wholly possible journey to the governor's mansion. Follow us on all of our social media feeds, andrewgillum.com. You can learn more about who we are and what we're representing and what we're trying to accomplish. But also, begin to engage your neighborhood, begin to engage your friends, begin to engage your networks, and real in-depth conversations about the change-making process and what it is that we want to accomplish as a community, as a society. Because the last thing we can do is wait until we're right on the heels of an election and then think that everybody's going to all of a sudden wake up and turn out. That's not how it works. We've got to exercise our muscle, our democratic participation muscle, our go and show up to the town hall meeting muscle, our talk to the neighbor and go door to door, registering and engaging people muscle. This doesn't happen overnight. This happens through a process of engagement and engagement over a sustained period of time. Voting is only one element of it. Beyond that, is showing up and holding folks accountable.
Showing up and showing out.
Right.
And so coming up, we're going to take a break right quick. Open up the lines, 888-550-9105. You can give us a call and you can speak directly to Andrew Gillum. And one of the things that I want to talk about, you know, your platform. You know, what your agenda is, and that salary increase for teachers that I think is going to make you the most beloved man in this state.
It's important, right?
Amen.
These are our kids.
Amen.
These
Stay tuned. We'll be back on the other side. I am Jill Tracy. This is Hot Talk on Hot 105.
Jay, you have a great voice.
Thank you.
Did you say 3 years only?
Well, no, I've been on the radio forever and ever.
Okay.
But I've only been doing talk for 3 years. I have been trying to get back. I started doing talk. I've been trying to get back to it since.
Was Hot 105 always your platform?
No. I started when WNBM flipped from gospel to talk. I was their first personality, and then they flipped back. And then just the entertainment thing. So, 15 years later, I'm like, okay, I can't. Actually, honestly, it was, I was driving home when Bill Clinton had to go before the world and say, I lied and I had sex. And I was like, I am a ripple in that rock, that made that possible. It just did something to me. That, in hindsight, Clinton, yeah, he wasn't the greatest president ever, but still, exactly, something that really did not have anything to do with the great things he had done. And I just was like, okay, I gotta get out of this. I can use this for better things, but I need to be using this for a higher purpose than running after Whitney Bobby. And it took a while, but, now I got this show. Jimmy left the show maybe 4 years ago, and it was like in about 9th or 10th place, and I've been #1 for 2 years. 2 years, 12 share, which is ridiculous. You gotta, thank you. Yeah, you gotta fade him out. Because we have to go in at 22. Beautiful. Okay. Is there Wi-Fi? Governor Cox is the, that is, it's, CMG Miami, and then Governor Cox is the password. Capital G, capital C, and Governor COX. Okay. You have sacrifice. Blessing.
I just put on Hot Talk.
You put it on. Oh, did you?
Hot Talk group, and I got
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna tag.
Sacrifice.
Wait a minute.
Well, I tagged him in the
Where'd you go?
You might have to start back over.
Okay, so I am production rooms. Then you go to Vox Pro.
Okay.
Then you go to Hot.
Okay.
Then you go to Hot Jill Tracy.
Okay.
And then Sacrifice. They'll just go to Big Sean. Oh, here, one man is good.
Cool.
All right. And then where's that pad? Okay, so when you come out,
We're going back in 10 seconds.
oh Jesus, Molly Music. When I close with the mayor, Molly Music is gonna be all right.
Toyota, let's go places.
Where did Javid go? Oh, I didn't even see her. up in here. Let me grab this. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you can call me back. I'm sorry, I didn't see you buzzing there. 888. There you go. You have me up? Hi, welcome to Hot Talk. Who's this? Tony? Hi, welcome, Tony. Hello? Hi, welcome to Hot Talk. Good, how are you? Did you have a question or blessed and highly favored? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, go ahead. Yes, can you hear us? Mm, mm, mm. Well, well, I'm gonna let I'm gonna let Mayor Gillum answer that. Hang on.
Well, I mean, hope does spring eternal, and
Amen.
maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but I think first of all, I think you got to measure people by their record. I mean, I have it is a difficult process that you fall into when you are in politics. That being said, there is change that can occur. I mean, I passed in my city ban the box where we don't ask about criminal background history when you apply for a job unless answering yes to having had one is a disqualifier for the job. If not, we're going to measure you on your merit.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken the issue of how it is we make sure that every single child in our community has an opportunity to learn beginning at the earliest possible point with 0 to 5 education. Over 90% of brain development that takes place over the course of human life takes place between the ages of 0 and 5. 40% of our kids are showing up at kindergarten not ready to learn. Nearly that percentage not on grade level reading by the time they get to third grade. And we know what kind of predictions start getting made based off literacy rate at that level. And so there are changes that can happen, but it doesn't happen overnight. You got to be willing to be in this thing and to be in it to win it.
To win it. Yeah.
And so we got to keep our mind on the prize in spite of what those obstacles and the historic barriers have been.
Hi, welcome to Hot Talk. Who's this?
Hey, Gary.
Hey, how are you, Gary Johnson?
What's what's up, man?
Yes, indeed. Mean it. I'll see you at breakfast.
Thank you, thank you for your work, Pastor. SCLC has played a huge important role in our community over
Yeah.
time. Thinking about the whole concept of sticking in this thing, and in spite of what the obstacles are, imagine where we'd be had our civil rights leaders decided
Yeah.
that it was too hard, right?
Amen.
That's what tomorrow's about.
Hi, welcome to Hot Talk. Who's this? Hello, Omar. How are you? Yes. Do you have a question or a comment for Mayor Gillum? Right. Right. To stop me from doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Mm, mm,
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Omar.
Yeah, Omar, that's an important point. I mean, one of the reasons why in a state like ours, where from a party standpoint, we're the majority, and yet can't seem, at least for 20 years, to elect a governor of our
Right.
choice. And part of my critique has been we can't put candidates up that run milquetoast, who are afraid to say what they believe, stand firm on what it is that they stand for, and get out there and give our voters, give our constituency a reason to go out and vote.
Well, you know, Andrew, somebody said, I'm not going to say who it was, but somebody really high placed, right? And we had a conversation about, I'm going to need you to stop begging at everybody else's gate to raise money and figure out a way that we can raise money in our community, right? And he said to me, well, I got to go where the money is.
Mm.
And this narrative that there is no money in our community is just false.
It's total falsehood.
And I think a lot of time, no, I know that we do disservice, to even being a part of the conversation that is, well, what do you have to lose?
Ridiculous.
Because that really is not, that is a symptom of part of our community, but that is not who we are. And as you heard, we talked about it before the call started coming. There is this level of, it's the system, and you gonna get in the system, and you gonna get caught up in the system too. And I think that a lot of that, and I'm gonna have to ask the church to say amen. We have to admit that a lot of people get in,
Yeah.
and they become bought and paid for to the point that,
Sure.
their agenda no longer becomes what they walked in the door thinking they were.
That's right. But that's what accountability is about, right? That's how you hold folks accountable. If we say a pox on our their houses because we got let down because we elected somebody who then strayed from what it was that we thought we were electing,
Right.
We're cutting our nose, ripping out our eyeballs, slitting and throwing acid on our face because we're mad with our bottom lip.
Right.
That's a problem.
That's a good one.
That is a problem. Because all of the decisions that still are made that impact your household, your family, your livelihood are still being made.
Right.
They're being made by somebody. And when you choose not to vote, you're voting in some way. Your silence is permission. Your silence is permission to allow a Donald Trump to walk into the White House. Your silence is permission for Rick Scott to say, to hell with the President of the United States. We don't want your stimulus money. We don't want to extend Medicaid, which cost this state last year $6 billion, which would have otherwise come into the state of Florida. It's to hell with your kids because we are testing them to death.
And your health care.
Absolutely. Pushing them out of the public education system because we no longer train them for any skill.
Yeah.
There are no apprenticeships. We're not moving them into a skill that leads to a job, that leads to a career where they can make a way for themselves and their families.
I noticed that as part of your platform, as well as a lot of the work that you've done in Tallahassee around, the innovation ecosystem.
Absolutely.
We are making strides.
We are.
In that way in South Florida as well. And I have joked about Nigerians being able to fix your iPhone with a bobby pin and a flashlight, but it's very true.
Yeah.
Despite anything that Trump has had to say, many engineers are coming from
Absolutely.
Nigeria. And I think that the greater picture is that we do have so many talented people coming from these countries that are coming here and becoming multimillionaires and that are really investing into the innovation ecosystem in South Florida. Well, in South Florida for sure, but in Florida as well. And I mentioned when we were going to the break that one of your platform issues is raising the salary for teachers to $50,000 entry level.
Right.
Yeah.
We Florida is among the lowest when it comes to starting salaries for teachers. You know, we're talking about the folks who are doing, in my opinion, the most difficult work that practically exists on earth outside of parenting. And that is they're responsible, along with our parents, with the shaping, the molding, the inspiring of our most precious gifts, our children. And so the fact that we have now made and maligned that profession to the point where nobody wants to go into it, where it's a profession of last resort. When I was growing up, teaching used to be an honorable middle class profession.
Right.
And now we've put that profession at the bottom of the barrel, and that isn't by accident, right? And so it's the grading, it's the judging of our teachers, it's the holding them responsible for poverty, for failed families, for failed parenthood. And when those students aren't taking from 0 to 100 overnight, we then say that the school and that the teachers are failures.
Right.
And so we've got to raise the salary of teachers and make sure that we increase the quality of what we're getting there, and we honor those who have already been in the profession. But we also got to radically reinfuse our training programs, our trade programs, our ability to equip our kids with the knowledge and the skills and the tools that they need to walk into the jobs that exist today. You mentioned the tech economy. It's one that I've leaned into in my city. My city, just last week, through the Bureau of Statistics, was identified as one of the fastest growing economies in the country per capita. Fastest growing in the state of Florida per capita, 19th in the country per capita. Because we're choosing to lean into this challenge of training up folks and building entrepreneurs and strengthening innovation. And by the way, when I say the tech economy, I don't mean sitting in the back of a dark room creating code. Right. I'm also talking about the person who works at Radiology and Associates and has to learn a new skill around working the technology to take a picture that the radiologist then interprets. Right. You don't need a college degree for that, but you do need some specified skills training. And we've got to move Florida's economy in that direction, that we're known largely for a low-wage state. Now we need to start to be, I think, the adult state that we deserve to be. We're the third largest in the country. It should not be our challenge that companies come to Florida and say that they cannot find the talent that they need, and therefore they have to import it from California and Illinois and the Research Triangle and Palo Alto. We should be producing all the talent that we need to fill the jobs that we attract to the state of Florida, and they need to be better paying jobs.
Yeah, and there are many people, you mentioned, healthcare. I'm working on a story right now about the healthcare industry and was shocked, for lack of a better word, to discover just the cycle of low-wage workers that never get beyond like nurses' age, or they don't, and because of the low wages and because of the long hours, it's just a cycle that keeps them in that space, and many of them don't speak English, so they have that barrier, and that insecurity, so they don't get out of their place. So there's so much, there need to be people in management places of those people that are willing to say, we're going to invest in you and what you need to be able to move you forward.
That's right.
Because it's just a never end. One of the things that, Omar mentioned, part of it is a very never ending cycle.
For sure. We have a nursing shortage in this state, right? We need to train more nurses. And so instead of dangling millions and millions of dollars to recruit company X, Y, and Z into the state of Florida, why aren't we creating pathways to train more nurses to fill what is an important need in the state of Florida, right? But we also have to balance that with the fact that we have an affordable housing crisis in the state of Florida, right? That working folks who make good wages aren't able to afford to live in cities, right? But yet our lawmakers in Tallahassee take Sadowski funds, which are intended to increase the affordable housing stock in the state, and they then take that money to plug the state budget because they decided to give big corporations in the state of Florida a tax break, right? It is cyclical, it is disgusting, and it's a reflection of the priorities of those that we have elected to office. Well, there's a third way. There is another way to do this, but you have to elect people who understand how to get that done, and then we'll make it a priority to accomplish those things while they're in office. And I certainly will as governor of the state of Florida.
Now, you mentioned well, the medical industry, and my next guest, who's in the studio now, we were, was you were chairman of Jackson Memorial Hospital, and were very successful. Larry Hanfield, Esquire,
All right, Doc.
is in the building. Welcome to High Talk.
My pleasure, Jill. It's been an honor to be here and to see you again. Thank you
Yes.
for all you do and to be in among the presence of our next governor.
Amen.
If anybody is concerned about the direction of where the state should be headed, we need to take advantage and help this dear brother become our next governor. This state badly needs. He represents the future and all that has been lacking. I think that he's the person that can definitely turn it around.
That means a lot. Thank you very much.
And Jill, one thing you hit on is very well about the health care. I had the pleasure and honor of serving as chairman of the Public Health Trust, Jackson Memorial Hospital. And as you know, at that time was the largest public hospital in the country. My yearly budget that I oversaw was $2.5 billion yearly. For 6 years, I served as chairman, and when I took over the chairmanship, we had a $68 million deficit, and in 6 years, when I stepped down, I left them with almost $150 million surplus. And one of the things was just recognizing that even though we were a public institution, we didn't have to operate as if we were a public institution.
Right.
We had to be competitive. And as a result, I was responsible for trying to make sure that healthcare was going to be accessible all across Miami-Dade County. Miami-Dade County is larger than some states if you look at just the population and how it's spread out. So one of the things was Deering Hospital down south secured that as a purchase and turned that into Jackson South. Then as relates to the north end, which was Parkway Hospital, we purchased Parkway and turned that into Jackson North. And the objective was to make sure that folks that look like you and I had accessibility to health care from the north end of the county all the way to the south end of the county. And to get the employees to buy in to this competitive edge and to reward them. And as a result, we noticed that the private patients population increased. And when that increased, we did not have to no longer depend on the government assistance, which was the 0.5% sales tax, which contributed about $300 million plus, but towards that $2.5 billion budget. But everyone bought in, and as a result, the citizens of Miami-Dade County received the best health care. The doctors come from the University of Miami Training Center. We had individuals coming into the country trying to get the best services they knew. When I grew up here as a kid, Jackson used to be the place where people came to die. Now it's the place where if you have a chance to live,
you go to Jackson.
Because no other place is going to be able to save your life.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is that,
and that's true. I am a testimony.
Absolutely. And so the bottom line is that with the technology that's existing, and one of the things that the mayor indicated about the teachers, and I think is an embarrassment, it's an indictment, the way we pay and the way we treat our teachers. Without teachers, you would not have lawyers like myself. You would not have doctors. You would not have engineers. You would not have any of the individuals that have make significant contributions for the betterment of our lifestyle. And so it's all tied into, we have to be more competitive. And the foundation to making sure that we're more competitive are in the hands of those who have the responsibility to teach us and train us. And so therefore, I salute what you're saying and understanding that we have ignored the teachers And as a result, we're paying a price for it.
Right.
Because anyone that's going to college now, if you look at, I was at commencement recently for the December, and I noticed that the teachers, as far as the graduating class, those want to be educators, it is decreasing tremendously. Why? You go to school for 4 years, and your starting salary at $40,000. I mean, I have individuals in my office, my law office, legal assistants that's making $60,000 without a college degree.
Right.
Not because I want to, because that's the competitive. I mean, you know, you want the
You
best.
want the
you gotta
best,
pay them.
right? Yeah.
And so therefore, to have teachers starting at 40, when you have individuals making 60, 65 without a college degree, it just goes to show that we have our priorities all totally messed up, you know, and we ought to do better. We can do better. And so one way is definitely investing in our future, and that is investing in our teachers. So kudos to that.
Well, Attorney Counselor, you know, all of us know probably better than not that if we don't intersect this issue early, we're going to pay more later, right? When we think about rights restoration and the fact that we've got folks who are going steadily into the criminal justice system largely because of absence of opportunity to earn, opportunity to be educated, opportunity to succeed. I'm a huge advocate for rights restoration of the 1.7 million people who have had their rights taken away in the state of Florida. And if you've ever watched one of these ceremonies, one of these cabinet meetings where they go up and ask for their rights to be restored, the governor and his 3 other cabinet members sit there, and you see these individuals say, pour their heart out for why it is, after waiting 20 or however many years, they would like their rights back. The governor asks questions like, do you smoke? When was the last time you had a drink?
Right.
When was the last time you had a driving citation? Questions that are, in my opinion, irrelevant.
Like, you know, count all the jelly beans in the drawer.
Absolutely.
The jar. It's
dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing.
Well, not only that, but we have to be smart enough to understand that there's a system in place. Florida is one of the very few states, 3 states in the country, union, that does not recognize giving individuals after they have done their time automatic right to vote.
Yeah.
And think about it. If the Constitution of the United States declared that every citizen shall have the right to vote, then you have to be smart enough to understand it was by design when you use these different mechanisms to take away that vote. Now, if you did the time, if you did the crime and you did the time, what is the correlation to your ability to vote just because you made a mistake and you paid for that mistake?
Right.
But the design is to keep you from what? Voting. Because again, it goes back to the same thing. We fail to realize the importance of voting. And it is one of the most powerful tools that a person has, and that's why we have built-in mechanism to take that power away.
That's exactly right. It's Jim Crow era law.
Oh, no question about it.
But then, was that a question from Facebook Live? Someone, I don't know who it is, but someone on Facebook Live just said
Karen Gray.
that you did. I'm sorry.
Karen Gray.
Oh, Karen. Oh, hey, girl. Hey.
Hey, Karen.
That he has she says he has the black vote. Ask, will he get others? How do you see yourself getting the Hispanic vote?
Yeah.
And I'm going to let him answer that when we come back on the. Can you stay with us?
Of course, yeah.
We come back on the other side. I am Jill Tracy, along with Mayor Andrew Gillum and Attorney Larry Hanfield Esquire.
Yes.
On Hot 105.
Attorney Counselor.
My leader.
When did your term expire at Jackson?
Yeah.
My girlfriend.
Well, you tell me when you want to.
I
We got it early.
Yeah.
See if we can get it. I know he.
Well, I can
wanna stay
cut
a little
him
longer,
out.
if I could.
You know,
If I could stay a little longer, I want to make sure I
No,
can
no,
ask a question. Yeah.
it's up to
I was just curious if we could
I got
go in
it.
between segment, but
I got it.
we'll put
Yeah, I mean, I could get him out. I'll come back in at the 50. I could get him out at the top.
Okay.
Okay, and now I've got.
Appreciate that, Joe.
I have sound that I need to pull for Larry. Are we coming out of the box, bro? No.
Yeah, Karen was asking, she was saying, you know, just as far as like black vote, like, you know, we here on the show, you know what I mean? But just asking how we get others, because that's one of the main things, you know.
Oh, okay.
Like she didn't ask like he got it. It just.
So I'll recap that question.
Here's what she said.
I get that.
You can come out of him. You can come out of him right here. Consider me gone when he says consider me gone.
Oh, Jeffrey LaFleur asked that. That was Jeffrey LaFleur.
Oh, did he say that was like it?
Jeffrey LaFleur. He said, "I would love to see this brother win, but he won't hit the Hispanic vote in South Florida, which he would need to have a chance." They went back and forth and said, you know, have hope or whatever, whatnot. But
well, the truth is actually
you're on Facebook
not,
Live, so
yeah,
you know,
well,
it's still live.
Oh, you can talk straight to him.
Well, I want to, since it was asked on air, I want to make sure we respond. Back on air, because there's a little misconception there that should be made.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh
man,
okay, but if I come back to that,
Hispanic vote.
Yeah.
The younger the generation.
Imports.
Hispanic and you have the Cuban vote.
I want Marvin.
No, I have Marvin Gaye.
Did you? Oh, okay. Oh.
Totally different.
Vastly
Brown,
Sorry.
Orlando,
Cool.
Okay, so we do Trouble Manhattan.
All right, cool.
Then
the Cuban vote,
We played Larry's. We played Sting already. Then I think this is a poem. What is this?
Larry Hanfield. No, that's what I want to bring him in. You know what we should do? No, play Devil's Pie coming back in.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna take him to the top, and then you'll play Devil's Pie to segue him out, and then we'll come right back in. So at midnight, would you just like play a little of it, so that he can leave the room and we can reset? Like,
Gotcha.
Feel me?
Just fill me in as we go.
Okay. So I'll just like cue you, cause.
All right.
Oh, but wait a minute. No, it's gotta be something over here, because you're gonna play Trouble Man to bring.
So we're going back in with Trouble Man.
So no, we're gonna go back in with Devil's Pie.
Gotcha.
But at midnight. So what we'll do? We're gonna do the call solicit there, right? To come back after that, to come back in, and then you're gonna play this to get him out, and then I'll come right back in.
Okay.
And then in here, after we come back in, from the poem transition from Gillum, then there is it says Larry Hanfield sound.
Yeah, I see.
And you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, you pull it up.
Let me pull it up for you.
That's gonna come after. That's gonna come like in the middle of the conversation.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we need like.
All right, so this first is this, and then I'm gonna play this. Or I'm gonna play this first, and then.
You're gonna play that first.
Okay.
Devil's Pie to come back in the show,
Gotcha.
and then try. And you can really come back in like now with this underneath that.
Like right now?
Yep.
Oh.
While we're still in that. I don't hear it.
I'm gonna try to get it. Let's see why you don't hear it.
And welcome back to Hot Talk. 888-550-9105. We have a few minutes left with Mayor Andrew Gillum. I appreciate you coming back on the other side. So you want to pick up where?
Yeah. So the question before we left was about how are we going to get the question before we left was about how we're going to get the Hispanic
Other
vote.
votes.
The other
Hispanic
votes.
vote and
the other
vote.
votes. Well, let me be clear. First of all, I don't know that we got the black vote. We got to fight every single day to earn the support of the black community. I don't take for granted that simply because I'm a person of color that will be enough to convince black voters that I should be their choice. And by the way, that isn't my pitch. My pitch is I'm the most qualified candidate for this office. I believe that regular people deserve a fighter and a champion for the issues that confront not just the well-heeled and well-connected, but the rest of us who make up the majority of the state of Florida. Now, let me also be clear that I ran for city council in the city of Tallahassee and also ran for a mayor with an electorate that was almost 70% white. And I won my race for mayor with 76% of the vote. I am prepared and willing to compete in any community, including the Hispanic community, which, by the way, is not a monolith. It is extremely diverse, just as the black community is extremely diverse all around the state. And with the influx of now almost 300,000 Puerto Ricans and the aftermath of that unfortunate Hurricane Maria, many of them have settled within the Central Florida area. Recall that I mentioned before that we've lost the race for governor by fewer than 70,000 votes. If we show up, we don't need everybody, but we do need more of us.
Right.
Each one of us can talk to somebody else and move those folks to the poll, regardless of race, background. What this is about is putting regular people's voice back in the government, back in the decision-making seat, so that our concerns can be addressed as well. And so I'm prepared to move all across the state competing in the Northern Panhandle, where many say we can't win, area of which I now represent, and as well as through the Central and the South Florida region of this state. There are more of us who believe like we believe, as this conversation has led to, than those who don't. We just got to give them a reason to turn out. And what I believe that reason is that, as I said earlier, if you're not at the table, then you're likely on the menu. Our issues have been on the menu for far too long, and we need to have a champion there for us.
And ignored.
And ignored.
You know, and I think Omar mentioned it, and you kind of touched on it, but, you know, and there is a problem with the Democratic Party. There's a problem with the message overall, and there's a problem with taking the African American vote for granted. Like, it's just going to be there. And to a degree,
well, that's not my approach.
to a degree, there is some validity there. However, you know, you have a lot of younger people that I'm finding going independent.
Of course.
You know, and that whole surge behind Bernie Sanders, that was not a joke. And there were a lot of people of color in there. Because I think that, you know, the Democratic Party, particularly like the Democratic Black Caucus in Florida, you know, y'all on some other, okay. So, you know, we constantly have those conversations about them, sometimes with them. I don't know if we're making any traction with them.
Well, in all defense, I won't be able to carry the sins of the Democratic Party on my shoulder in this race. What I'm attempting to do is to say that candidates matter. And yes, our party has been complicit in making mistakes, complicit in taking advantage of votes and of voters, of getting there on the backs of promises and then finding that those promises are left unkept. What I'm attempting to do is say we've got to do this differently than what we've done these last 20 years. We need someone who, in my case, judge me by my record. You don't have to judge me by the words that I've spoken. You know, judge me by the record.
And I think that if, you know, you can find a way to engage people as such as they understand that each person matters.
Absolutely.
Like every hand-to-hand vote. If you are on your Saturday afternoon getting with your girlfriends at the brunch and you all are just going to canvass your neighborhood,
That's
you know what I'm saying? People need to understand that all of that works too. We did it for Obama, and it does. It works, and I think that that's the hardest, you know, message when you try to cut through all of this and all the social media to really get the word out. And, you know, and doing things like this, staying up with me at 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday, and you know, a full day tomorrow.
Hey, Jill, like I made this promise all over the state. We're not going to be outworked in this race, right? I'm so used to being counted down and out, right? When I ran for city commission, they said there was no possible way that somebody like me was going to get elected. I ran as the youngest person in Tallahassee's history to ever get elected to the Tallahassee City Commission over all the odds, right? But let me tell you what helped make that happen. It was my mama who signed up and gave $20 every time she could to help power our campaign forward. It's going to be people who are under the listenership of our voices who will say, you know what, I'm going to sow a seed of $5 into this brother's campaign to help put some gas in the tank to help them move across the state of Florida. We can't do this by ourselves. I want to be the first to admit, if there is any delusion out there at all, I cannot deliver this by myself. I'm not running by myself. Yeah. We're trying to put a new face and a new wave of government. And when we get elected, we all going to Tallahassee. And I don't mean physically. I mean, well, physically you can come too, but I also mean the issues that we are saddled with, the burdens that we carry, the shoulders upon which we stand. Right. We're all going to Tallahassee when we win.
And those of you listening need to know that you will be carrying those to Tallahassee.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're going to all, stuff Mayor Gillum's bag like Santa Claus, and he's just going to walk to the White House and read each letter and take care of everybody. Did I say the White House? I'm working on it. The governor's mansion, and read off each one and say, okay, and assign somebody to take care of all these things. No, it's having an issue, and moving it forward. It's just like in your workplace. If you think about the government, just like you think about how you get things done at work when all odds are against you, that might be a good metaphor.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Listen, it's been 20 years. And not only is there the governor's office, but there's the bureaucracy of the government. Yeah. So how do you get individuals within the departments and the agencies who share your political philosophy and theory of change?
How do you
That's not a one-person job.
That's another show. That's another show. We definitely,
I'm coming back, Jay.
You're born and raised in the county of Dade.
That's it.
So we intend to see you.
South Dade.
We intend to see you back here again. And you said, what is that song, Munch? I've been down so long it looked like that one, and I've been down so long it looked like to me.
Oh yeah.
Who is that? I have to find next time we'll put. But it's true. Do you know what I'm saying? I think in terms of our community, we've been down so long that just the little sunlight.
That's right.
Makes a difference. So, and you are really a ray of sunlight.
Well, we have a chance. We have an opportunity, and all I'm saying is the only thing in life my mama ever told me to ask for, which was a shot, chance, right? And so we're asking for that chance, and I've tried to do my very best to make myself ready for this moment, right? And now our community has to ask ourselves, are we ready for this moment? And if we answer yes, then that means we gotta sew in a couple of dollars to make it work. We gotta reach out, each one teach one, touch one, right? And then we gotta show up and vote. And once we are done with the election, we then have to make sure that we get our posse together in a positive way to go and make the kind of change throughout the system that we want to affect.
Well, the first thing you can do is get on the mailing list.
Yes.
So how do they do that?
AndrewGillum.com. Join us on AndrewGillum.com. You can go in. The first splash page is to put your information in, join our list. And while you're there, there's a donate page. Get $5. Okay. I mean it. Let me tell you, if folks who work hard, you work hard for every dollar you get, right? I'm talking about give me as much as you would spend on a Coke, right? On a Coca-Cola. Less than what you will spend on a mixed drink. Yeah. Right? Because this is a democracy, and a democracy requires participation in order for it to work. And part of participation means putting not only your vote on the line, but also sowing a seed of financial support in order to deliver the results that you'd like to see. This is not a spectator sport. This requires all hands on deck, all hands on the field. And that's what I'm asking for. If you give us that shot, we're going to make our way to Tallahassee with all of us in tow to create the kind of change that I think we want to see. That is wholly possible. Don't let anybody tell you it isn't.
Amen. Well, I hope that you will consider this your home when you're in South Florida. We look forward to helping you do that heavy lifting.
Well, thank you. Let me tell you this. It is important that we have voices like yours and like Larry and like so many others, particularly in this age of Trump, where we have to remind ourselves constantly that there are more of us than there are of them, that we are the American people, and we outnumber those who would like to see us up under their heel. We're the majority, and we got to remember that in this fight.
Yeah, amen. And your team looks like okay. He has to go. We'll see you at the breakfast.
See you at the breakfast. 5,000 role models.
5,000 role models breakfast, and it's the first
And Mayor, make sure you say that name again, because I think all the listeners need to understand this is an opportunity to invest in our own future.
Yeah.
That's right. AndrewGillum.com.
Spell the
It's
last name.
Gillum.
That's right. Gillum.
There you go.
AndrewGillum.com. Please look out for us, follow us, sow a seed of support into us, and really importantly, y'all, keep my wife, my 3 kids, and myself in prayer. This is the hardest thing we've done up to this date, and every day we have to gird ourselves for whatever the challenge is going to be. And I know prayer changes things. God has created me for a moment such as this, but your prayers are what's going to sustain us through it.
Amen. Thank you so much. Safe travels to you. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you in the morning.
And AndrewGillum.com. Get on the list now. I'll be back. Coming up, 2 years ago, the police watched a young black intruder on LSD break into a white woman's house and beat her close to death. He lived to tell the story. And coming up, attorney Larry Hanford will tell us how that happened. Stay tuned.
All right, that was a good tease. I've been listening in the car to hear what that was about.
I see the
Yes, indeed. No problem.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Really.
Yeah, I will send Geoff. Is that how I pronounce his name? Jeff?
Like
Okay.
Jay with a G. Thank you.
I will send him the audio.
Okay.
Can you
Perfect.
get the picture?
Thank you, by the way. Very good to meet you. Will you snap a photo?
Yes.
Where's mine?
You got the campaign phone, right?
You have it.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Oh, you got it.
Just so you have one. So you can say you got one.
Get that out the way. Oh, no.
All right.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Let me get one more.
Glamour shot.
Right?
All right.
Hold on.
Let's
Okay.
get a real one. Let's get a real one.
One more. 3, 2, 1. Up some more. Ready? Jill?
Mhm.
3, 2, 1.
Did I?
See, I was.
Okay, wait. When you said, "Are you ready?" It's like because your hair ain't. That's
No,
all.
it
That's all I heard. Okay.
No, it was not because your hair ain't. I just in case you
Are
wanted
you
to.
sure? Yeah, you ready?
3, 2, 1. All right, got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We're coming back.
Mwah.
We're coming back to
Yes.
see you.
I look forward
sure.
to
Thank you,
seeing
Joe.
you.
See you.
Yo,
Godspeed
All right, take care, man.
Take these
Good
gentlemen.
to meet you.
Careful.
Larry, we'll see you tomorrow, man.
out there.
All right. See y'all.
Okay. Ooh. Can you? Oh, am I back? And we're back. I was asking you if you could go to Chris, but we'll come back.
Okay.
We'll come back to that. And